Yeah. All right. Well,
Mhm.
tell me your story.
So, well, where do you want me to start?
Well, let's see. When did you start swimming?
So, so I started swimming 1979 when I was 2 years old, and um, in high school I did high school swim team, but that was really just to get out of PE class. It wasn't like I was one of the slowest people on the team, but it's like one of I always showed up for practice though. And then did it kind of on and off in college because it wasn't fast enough to make my college swim team. And then never did it again until I had when I was about 34. I lost the ability to lift my right leg. My right hip joint got severely inflamed,
Oh, wow.
and turned out I had hip dysplasia actually in both hips. And so a very talented surgeon at Stanford performed a periacetabular osteotomy on both my hips, which involved breaking my pelvis.
Oh,
Um,
gosh.
yeah, breaking my pelvis twice to save my hip joints.
Wow.
And I got interested in swimming again. My physical therapist, his best friend since childhood, was a self-described adventure swimmer, Jamie Patrick.
Okay.
And he was doing a 111-mile swim down the Sacramento River in a wetsuit, but still. And I remember I was tracking him that weekend while he was doing the swim, and it's like, so actually that got me interested in swimming again.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started going to the pool at 24-hour fitness, and then wanted to actually have like a real pool to swim in. So I started going to San Mateo Athletic Club, which had 25-yard pools, and worked my way up to. I was doing about 5,000 yards every day that I went there, which was
Wow.
about 7 days a week.
Wow.
And I ended up meeting Jamie and my friend Romy, who is another swimmer that I knew through one of my cousins, and they both actually encouraged me to try open water swimming. And so in August of 2013, I met up with Jamie in Emerald Bay in Lake Tahoe
Mm-hmm.
and did my first open water swim there, and it was such a magical experience.
Really?
And it, actually, we went out, swam around the island in the bay, and then back, and I loved it so much. I told him like, I'm never swimming in a pool again. It was just it was just so magical and such an incredible feeling, and it feels different than swimming in a pool.
Mm-hmm.
And it took about 5 months later. I stopped swimming in a pool on any kind of regular basis,
Mm-hmm.
and so since then I've been swimming mostly open water since then.
Yeah.
Um,
What time of year was it when you went to Emerald Bay?
that was August 2013.
Okay. Did you wear a wetsuit or were you fine with well, it's not that cold, right? In August, like, is it
I didn't know what to
69?
expect, so actually I wore it's the only time I've swam with any kind of wetsuit. I wore a little shorty,
Mm-hmm.
and then like felt like I wasn't cold, so I was like, I don't think I need this, and so I
Mm-hmm.
haven't worn neoprene while swimming since then.
Oh, really? Yeah. 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 I remember my first swim in Lake Tahoe. It was probably in June, but I was just there for a friend's wedding. This was way before I like knew anything about open water swimming. But I remember getting like that ice cream headache. Like I just was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go swimming. And so my husband stayed on the beach and I just went out swimming and I was just like, oh my goodness. Like it was
Yeah,
bracing. But last year I swam across and I like totally have gotten past that whole ice cream headache thing. It's funny to me, just like where we all start.
yeah, yeah. The crazy thing was that same weekend I met Evan Morrison from South End Rowing Club, and he
Hmm.
um, told me like, "Hey, come swim in the bay with us." And I told him he was nuts. There was absolutely no way in hell I was doing that. And he asked me a couple more times after that, and I finally won for some reason in the following January 2014. I texted him and said, "Okay, you know what? I'll give it a shot." And ended up doing my first swim in San Francisco Bay in January of 2014. The water was 53 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah, looking back at that, that was one of the worst times of the year I could have picked that. And again, it was just I was actually with Susie Dodds at the time, and swam out to the opening and looked at the Golden Gate Bridge, looked, back at the city, sighted off of the Transamerica Pyramid, going back in, and it was just like, again, it was like, this is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do this like forever.
Yes, you got the bug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When did you start pushing distances in the open water?
That was actually Lynn Kabasic. I knew her. She lived down in Laguna Beach, and probably about shortly after I started swimming in San Francisco Bay, because I was actually living in Pasadena for a year at the time, and I had started doing this 120-mile round trip to drive from Pasadena to Laguna Beach to swim. It's 60 miles one way. And so I was driving down there about 5 times a week. Even though I live like literally down the street from the Rose Bowl Aquatic Center. It's like I would rather swim in Laguna Beach in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Lynn texted me one day and said, "You should swim Anacapa." And I'm like, sure, let's Anacapa. And that's when I found out I just, agreed to do a 12.4 mile swim from Anacapa Island to Oxnard.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, okay, I guess. And I'd actually been pushing distance in the pool a little bit beforehand with U.S. Masters Swimming when they had their Go the Distance challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And since I was doing, when I was still swimming in a pool, and I was, swimming about 6 kilometers every day I went there. And so it's like, so with Go the Distance, I kind of started, trying to track to reach the milestones. And started kind of seeing like, oh, I wonder how far I could actually swim. Longest I did in a pool was 14 kilometers.
Wow. That's a lot in a pool.
Yeah, it was. It was not, I would not say that was enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of going into open waters and starting to do marathons just kind of seemed like, like a logical step of,
right.
But yeah, 12.4 miles, like, okay. So yes, but it's like, so I agreed to that. And yeah, I guess that's kind of how I started pushing distances of just, not being any smarter to say no.
What's that?
not being smart enough to say no.
Oh, yeah. It's funny the number of people that there's like that say they had it was peer pressure that got them into marathon swimming, or the I wasn't smart enough to say no. I just said, oh yeah, okay, let's try it. And then you're like, wait, what did I just sign up for? So
definitely in that category. Definitely a category of like, yeah, why did I just agree to that?
So how did you prepare for that first big swim?
I actually didn't even know it. I really didn't know what I was doing. I was kind of freaking out a little about it. And my friend Carol had told her husband, Peter, that I was freaking out about this. And Peter Hayden, he's a very experienced marathon swimmer, very, very good guy. And so he called me up and said, hey, I hear that you're kind of freaking out about this. I'm here if you want to talk. And at the time I already admired him, and I was like, oh my God, it was like Peter just called me. So I called him back. He stayed on the phone with me for about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Wow.
He told me how to train for this, how to just kind of break it down into smaller chunks of, milestone swims, every week of like, just one long swim, and how to kind of come up with a rough draft of a training schedule. And so kind of like, you know, with marathon swimming feeds of like, you know, if you can just take it from one feed to another, you know, not look at it as like, oh my God, I'm going to go swim 20 miles. Instead, it's like, you know, just, it's a bunch of half-hour swims.
Right.
So that really helped breaking it down. And Carol was also training for ANACAPA too. Our swims were, I think, about 2 weeks apart. So we actually did a lot of our training swims together too.
Nice.
And so that was really helpful to have someone with me that was, you know, doing the exact same swim, you know, at about the exact same time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So how did it feel to finish that first? Well, how did it go? Let's say. So you were freaking out, but you got it. You got your training nailed, and then it's the day of the event. How did it go?
Yeah. So I did it on September 20th, 2014. And it was actually the start of it was really cool because there was bioluminescence.
Oh, yeah.
And so I started at, I want to say about 2:30 in the morning. And it was, you know, for the first couple of hours, I was just absolutely mesmerized by everything sparkling. You know, you see the green spark off of your arms. And the very first thing I saw was what I now think was a very large whale underneath me that was also bioluminated.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. And I remember I was like just transfixed on it and like, don't look down. It's like, what is that? It's like, oh my God, what is that? And then I figured like, you know, okay, if I make it to my next feed, then whatever that was not interested in me. Because of course, you know, the first thing you think of when you see something large underneath you, like, is that a shark?
Yep.
And then shortly after that whale, a pod of about 50 dolphins showed up and started swimming with me.
Oh my God.
They swam with me for about 2 hours.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. And they were also bioluminated. They actually got close enough to me. I could actually see the texture on their skin.
Wow. That's so
and
cool.
When I was stopped to feed, they would actually bump me, trying to, like kind of like a, you know, hey, let's go. What are you stopping for?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that actually helped calm me too, because I was like, you know, thinking in my head like, okay, as long as they're around, like sharks are gonna stay away, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I had and then, you know, they disappeared after a couple of hours, and I'm kind of sad about that. I was like, you know, why didn't they come back? Like, can't you just stay like until I finish?
Yeah.
And yeah, finishing that swim was kind of a very surreal feeling. I remember when I finished the swim, and Carol had been on my crew because I wanted her there. And so she was my buddy swimmer into the finish. And it was very strange kind of getting up on my legs again at the end. And I didn't even know. It was like I turned around, like actually the rest of my crew had swam in with me. So they were all, yeah, so they were all there on the beach after I finished to, you know, congratulate me and give me hugs. And yeah, it was just, you know, one of those odd things, you know, you're looking back at like ANACAPA Island and you're like, you really just swim that? It's like, this is over. And I remember trying to get back into the water. You have to swim back to the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Gracie Vanderbilt she had been on my crew also, and she stayed with me. Everyone else swam back to the boat, and I was like about waist deep in water, and I couldn't get myself to actually start swimming again. There were a couple of guys there that had asked if we had swam from ANACAPA, and Gracie's like, yeah, and they were like, yeah, we kind of figured because there's nothing else out there. This is the only place you could have come from.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it just even when I got back to my apartment that night, it was just like I can't believe that actually happened. I weighed myself the next day too to see if I lost any weight, and I didn't. I didn't lose a single pound. And I was really disappointed about that. So, but then it's like, you know, you get the idea of like, wow, it's like, if I could do that, it's like kind of, I wonder what else I could do. I've gotten the idea of possibly doing Catalina after that. And so after that, so after finishing ANACAP, it's like, yeah, okay, I've decided. I was like, I want to do Catalina next year. Yeah.
So how did you get ready for Catalina?
Yeah, so I did a Catalina August 14th, 15th of 2015. And that was, I wasn't quite sure. I talked with Gracie about it. And because I wasn't sure about how to go about this, you know, and she said, hey, you know, it'll take about like 5 months to train for it. And, you know, kind of the same thing, just, you know, break it down, take what I learned from my ANACAP Swim, and yeah, just kind of divide it up. You know, she would help out any way that she could. And that one was just unexpected in every way imaginable. So the amount of like, that was a real commitment for the training. I couldn't, I had a hard time not getting burned out.
Yeah.
You know, because I did spend about 6 months or so training for it. And, you know, I actually had even more people helping to support me in my training. And I also actually started road cycling too. And, you know, I was just thinking this morning about how, you know, most people when they're preparing for something like, you know, a marathon swim and doing that training, that, you know, they're going to let other things go by the wayside, not add things into the schedule. And yeah. And I added something into my schedule that was taking up like half my time because I fell in love with road cycling. And so it was like kind of conflicting with that, you know, wanting to ride my bike. And I, of course, started doing longer distances on that. And also having my training schedule too to try to adhere to. Yeah, Kelley, I'm actually really proud of. Not so much of the distance that was involved with that swim, but just with what I learned from it. Of a couple of things during my swim. During Catalina, I pinched my right shoulder halfway through, and I was in an immense amount of pain.
Ouch.
And I remember being, I figured out I was about 11 miles into the swim, and looking back at the island and thinking like, I'm not swimming these 11 miles ever again. It's like, we're finishing this today. Like, I am not coming back here next year to do this. And my crew knew that, you know, they knew something was up, because and Peter was on my crew for that also. But yeah, I started like swimming backstroke, and my pace slowed down a lot, and kind of doing everything I could to just kind of keep going. And forget how much later than that, my sinuses felt like they were on fire from the salt water.
Oh no.
Yeah, so it's like every time, like, you know, a wave went over me, and, you know, got salt water in my nose. It just, yeah, it was like little fires going off. And so I was just in so much pain, and I was just so miserable on that, you know, at that swim at that point. And actually there was one point where I just stopped swimming, and Paula Selby, who's one of my observers, I remember hearing her on the boat saying, "Why is she stopping?" And so my crew was trying to talk to me, and I just said, like, I'm just trying to like collect myself, which they had no one knew what that meant. In my head, I remember I was thinking, like, I didn't want to swim anymore. I would have been happy if the boat just left me out there in the middle of the channel. And then I forget how in the world I finally started swimming again after that. But yeah, it was just one of those, like, I was getting kind of mentally gone by then. but afterwards when I finished, and I remember a couple of people had asked me, like, did I ever think about quitting? And I had to think about it. It's like, actually quitting never actually entered my mind. Even when I just wanted to stop swimming out there, the thought of getting back on that boat was not one of the options. It was just keep swimming or just leave me out here.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. It's just I hadn't thought of that. And then
good quality.
Yeah, it's just when you realize, like, wow, it's like, yeah, I guess I never thought about that. And it's something before that swim I would never have imagined that what I was capable of just really, like, no matter how painful this is going to be, it's like we're gonna go. I'm gonna get through this.
You don't know how you got over that hurdle of that, like you said, you needed to stop and collect yourself, but you don't know exactly like how you convinced yourself to keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you don't think quitting's an option, then the only option is to keep going. So
yeah, for all I know, there's the tiny little logical part of my brain left saying that, well, you can't stay out here forever. But I don't remember.
Yeah.
But then it was really cool because, like, I finished the swim, and it's like one of the, at least for me, I never think anyone cares that I'm doing any of these. Even though you've got like the spot tracker and there's like the link and everything, I was really surprised when I got back home. I had already moved back to San Francisco, and I got back home and went to the South End Rowing Club, and on a couple of the boards, people had written on there, like, congratulations, Kelley.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, oh my God, it's like people were watching. And yeah, so actually I took pictures of those boards, and actually at work I have them taped up underneath my cabinet. So when I'm non-pandemic times, when I'm having, like, really bad day at work, and it's like I just instinctively, like, kind of look up to the ceiling, and then it's like, and I'll see those there, and it's like, and it's just kind of a nice comforting thing.
Yeah, it's something that you did. That's one of my favorite things about marathon swimming. It's like the accomplishment that I mean, we do it with a team, of course, but it's still that you can have that sense of, I can't figure out what to call it. Like, it's kind of fulfillment, but it's empowering, to know that you did that, and it can comfort you in other times of your life. That's what I love about it.
Yeah. And knowing that, like, even when you, put yourself through a difficult time, that, people actually cared.
Yeah. It's so cool.
Yeah.
What have you faced a moment like that in any of your other swims where you were, or was that the hardest one?
That was definitely the hardest one. The last marathon swim I did was 2 years ago. The peer-to-peer 10K down in Santa Cruz, which was supposed to only be 10K. It was really foggy, really windy. A lot of us got blown off course. And effectively ended up swimming more than 10K. I ended up swimming, what was it? I think about 5.5 hours for something that should have only taken me like 3 hours. And actually, my kayaker said afterwards, he's like, do you remember when you, like, during the swim when you told me to F off? It's like, actually, I don't. I really don't.
So you had some rough moments, and that's what.
Yeah. And he's really cool. He understood that, like, I was not having a good time because he wasn't having a good time in the kayak either.
Right.
Just because it was just the conditions were just being so difficult.
Yeah. Wind and fog, and that sounds horrible.
Yeah. One of those swims where it's like, you start off the day, it's like a perfect day. Then, this all, like, the swim starts, and all of a sudden, like, the fog rolls in, and, like, the wind picks up, and it's just like, okay, this is not what it was like, half an hour ago.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's, I guess, part of what's interesting about it is that you never know if the weather's going to hold for your whole swim, but so we have to really,
Yeah, and that's one thing I really like about marathon swimming too, because it's never going to be the same. Like any kind of open water swimming, same exact, course, route, body of water. It changes throughout the day. And from day to day, it's like you can go do, any of these swims, 20 times, and it's going to be a different swim every single time.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like someone else has told me that too. Some of the people that do kind of the same routes over and over, they're like, but it's never the same. So it's not the same. I think Chris Repford, who swam around Manhattan like 25 times, he's like, but it's never the same. Every time I go, it's different. So.
Oh, yeah. Like since the pandemic started, since about May, I've been swimming down in Lindemar over in Pacifica. And, a couple times a week usually. And it's like, yeah, it's always different. You don't know what it's gonna be like.
Yeah.
But that's the thing I really like about open water swimming, is that it's always changing. You go to the pool, and it's always gonna be the same. It's gonna look the same. It's gonna feel the same.
Yep.
It's not organic.
Right. Yeah. Unless the chemicals are off. But yeah.
I have a hard time trying to explain to some people that, just because a pool is clear does not mean that is not clean. It's like there are a bunch of chemicals. It's a magician trick of, making it look clear.
Yeah.
But then also, like, for me, that water kind of feels fake in a way.
Yeah.
And I think it is actually because of the all the chemicals in it. That was actually one of the saving graces I had with starting open water swimming, because with swimming in a pool as often as I was, my skin was starting to crack.
I bet. Yeah.
Getting really dry and really itchy. Swimming in a pool 5 to 7 days a week. Even for 2 hours at a time, it's like, it was wreaking havoc. And so I don't have that problem anymore, thank goodness.
Yeah. There's something to open water, letting nature do the filtration for us.
Yeah. And then sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then there are all the people who, when they hear swimming, they just always think of like pool swimming. And it's just like, open water is not something they ever think of.
Right.
And it's like, I don't like the smell of chlorine. So, every time I'm in a pool, I'm just like, afterward, I'm like, oh my God, get the smell off of me.
Yeah. I want to go back to the road cycling. So you picked that up during your Catalina training. Did you find any benefits of like crossover from the cardiovascular, or I don't know, strength in your legs, or was it just kind of another thing you were trying to fit in?
Another thing I was trying to fit in, and kind of annoying Peter, who was my crew chief for my Catalina Swim. He was getting a little frustrated with my road cycling. Just because, like, especially since I had done, I can laugh at it now. But I had done my first 100-mile ride, a week and a half before my Catalina Swim. And when Peter found out, he was furious at me. Because it's like, if I had crashed, if anything had happened, like, that would have jeopardized my ability to do Catalina. And so it was just more of a distraction, like kind of a happy distraction for me. But it's like, and I see Peter's point of, it's like something could have gone wrong on a road bike that would have thrown away, all the effort I had put into training for my Catalina Swim.
Yeah.
So he was right on that, but it all worked out.
Right. Yeah.
In a way, I think it helped me getting even more burned out during my Catalina training, because I wasn't just swimming all the time.
Right. Yeah.
So,
it sounds like you're swimming a lot going into a big swim like that. So how much are you swimming going into something like Catalina?
I don't do that for my training. I do like the one long swim a week, which is usually half an hour longer than like the previous week. And then the rest of the week swims are just like, the regular little, like, 1 hour, hour and a half. I know some people do like, like yardage per week and everything, but it's like, I don't do that.
Yeah, I don't either. I was just curious.
Yeah.
But I was just curious if it kept like burnout at bay, but it sounds like you were just kind of at a time where you were just getting burned out from all the swimming. Going into that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you get frustrated. And like, actually, when I first started training for Catalina, with swimming in San Francisco Bay, as opposed to my Kappa training that was down in Laguna Beach, I started training for Catalina, I think in about February, March, which is it's still during the coldest time of the year for swimming in the bay.
Mm-hmm.
So the water's about 50 degrees, going down to like 40, like the upper 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And so, trying to get longer training swims in, and I was getting really frustrated because like I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't sit there or swim around for like 3 hours in 4 hours in 50-degree water. It just wasn't happening. And so my friend Kathy Harrington, who was doing a lot of my kayaking for my training swims, and she told me that another friend of ours, Patty B, recommended like going to sorry for the cat.
That's okay.
Said to go to Lake Berryessa because the water was warmer there. There instead and so we went. We went to Lake Berryessa. I was able to actually do I want to say it was 3.5, 4 hours training swimming there. And it's like, those handful of degrees makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that really helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But just, finding other places that I can, with a little bit warmer water, that I can actually do the distances in. And then
Mm-hmm.
Kathy, of course, I couldn't have done it without her either, with her kayaking for most of the training swims. Because then it's like we could go outside of Aquatic Park, all the way down to like Anita Rock that's over in Crissy Field, and kind of breaking the monotony of just swimming cove laps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I was like, because then I wouldn't know where I was either, because I wouldn't be really paying attention. I would just know like, okay, we're going to be doing like 8 feeds today.
Yeah.
So, just kind of keep swimming around.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I'm extremely thankful for her doing that. Up to, I think the longest training swim I did with her was 7 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like, I can barely kayak for like, 2 hours, let alone 7. So.
Yeah. Our kayakers, man, they're committed. I love them.
Yeah. Yeah. I just can't, I don't find a kayak that comfortable to sit in.
I don't either. Yeah. But thank goodness there's people out there that do.
Yeah. Yeah, actually my friend Kevin, he kayaked for the first Catalina Swim I was on that I crewed for. He was a kayaker for it. He kayaked the entire swim.
Wow.
He spent all 12 hours in the kayak.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, I have no idea how he did that.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, you look at it, it's like, oh, maybe it's not that bad. And then you get in the kayak and you're like, no, it's worse.
Yeah. What about your swimming technique? Has it evolved, especially since you started out kind of as a pool swimmer and then coming open water? Do you feel like your technique's evolved?
The one major difference I have in my pool swimming days to my open water is I swim freestyle now.
You still do a lot more.
I swam backstroke in high school, and I rarely did freestyle. And so actually when I started swimming again after my surgeries, I was swimming backstroke in the pool. And it was like one of those, like, but when I decided to start doing open water, it's like, well, I can't do backstroke for that.
Somebody did actually cross the English Channel backstroke this year.
Yeah, Tina Neal actually from SoCal. She did a double Catalina where she actually did one of the lengths she actually did backstroke. She did.
Wow.
yeah, she did freestyle and then switched to backstroke. I think it was
That's
the order she
impressive.
did it in. So yeah, 20.2 miles of backstroke.
It's incredible. Incredible.
Yeah. But then also like at the once upon a time, Evan was actually able to do swim classes, private swim classes at one of the local schools here.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually for both my handicap and Catalina Swims, I worked with him to try to improve my stroke. And the great thing about Evan too, with him being a marathon swimmer and also very anal on technique, is that he also, he fully understands that, pool swimming is different than open water. That's different than, full on marathon swim. And so knows that like when I would show up, that's like, I'm training for a marathon swim. And, we'd talk about my swim too. That's how my training was going.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah. So I'm grateful for that too, with those swims that I was able to work with him.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
of course, you get out there and then like, you kind of forget about all your technique, but
Right. You're just trying to get through.
at least you did something beforehand.
Yeah. How do you think you handle hard situations?
Hard situations. Wall swimming.
Sure, we could talk about swimming.
Yeah. Wall swimming for like during the marathon swims, I have this ingrained desire not to waste anyone's time. Like I feel horrible wasting my crew's time. I mean, that's one of the things that I think also helped me, no matter how much pain I'm in, of keep going, because it's like, these are people who just gave up, their night, day, traveled, took time away from, their lives of like, their loved ones, friends, families. In one case, my friend Howard, who for my Catalina Swim gave up the one meet he does with his master's team all year. He gave that up to crew for my Catalina Swim. And it's just one of those, like, I just don't want to say like, oh, you know what, this is all for nothing because I didn't finish this. And I feel I had to do that once. There was actually, I do have a DNF. And it's just like, I absolutely felt horrible. And my crew and my observer, I only had one person on my crew, and the observer both said, you know what, I don't think this wasn't a waste of time for me. I was like, I was happy to be here, and knowing the outcome, I'd still come back and do it. And so it's like, so that means a lot to me. It's like helped me feel that a little bit better, but it's like I just still felt like crap too that I didn't finish.
Yeah. What didn't you finish?
That was my round trip Angel Island. It was actually my second attempt for it. And I'm trying to do a specific pattern for it, which makes it a lot more complicated to try to plan and then pray that the currents work out the way that they're supposed to, because of course, as I always say, the tides don't read the tide book. And so on that day, it was supposed to have started flooding, and it didn't. It was still ebbing while I was coming around the edge of the west side of Angel Island, trying to head towards the east side of Alcatraz. And yeah, it was still ebbing though, and it's like I couldn't make any forward progress. It's like, yeah, and for that it sucked because like you're in San Francisco Bay. It's like I recognize the landmark. I know I'm not making any progress. And so after dealing with that for a couple of hours, knowing I'm not going anywhere, that one actually I did quit, and I was like, forget it. It's like, this is obviously not happening, because and my crew too knew that it was like, they were trying different things to try to get me around to that east side, and it's like nothing was working.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you also don't know. It's like, okay, well, it's still ebbing. It's like, we don't know when slack's gonna happen. It's gonna start flooding.
Right. Yeah. That's frustrating.
Yeah. Because most people for Angel Island, they're just, nowhere, whatever they get thrown at is like, okay, yeah, head out either, just get to Raccoon Strait on the north side of Angel Island, get back into Aquatic Park. Whereas like, I'm trying to do a figure 8 pattern, and it's like, yeah, so it's like, it's very specific. It's like, I'm on the west side of Angel Island. I need to pass the east side of Alcatraz. Like, there's no other option for me, to try to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything from that particular swim?
That I am willing to quit at a certain point.
Well, no, I think there's something, but it's something to like acknowledging that your crew just wants to support you. Like maybe, like maybe that's it doesn't, or that you have to surrender to the currents and that you can't always make it through. I don't know.
I definitely learned, with my crew saying that, to them, it was still worth it to come out and support me. And learning to the difference between like, being in a open ocean, and not having any land references is just so much easier than being only a few miles away from landmarks, and knowing exactly where you are. And it's a lot more mentally taxing to know when you're not making progress. Yeah, like my Catalina Swim, I swam in place for I think they said about an hour, and it's like, and I had no idea.
Yeah. There's something to knowing or not knowing that you're not moving anywhere, right?
Yeah, so I still want to try the Rancho Peña Island again, and it's like, kind of, do as much plan as I can for it with the currents, and hope that it actually materializes in my favor to be able to finally finish that.
Yeah. How's the pandemic been for you?
Been interesting. I started trail running too, so now trail running, cycling, and swimming. I actually didn't swim for the first 2 months. It's just like not knowing, how the virus was being transmitted, and with the wind and everything, like, I was like, I just don't feel comfortable swimming anywhere. And people were coming up with like different places to swim. Some people were still going up to Aquatic Park. Some people were like, swimming further south in the bay, like over at Kelley Point. And I was fine with just like trail running and cycling. But for the first couple of months, then when it seemed like, okay, I think it's okay to actually swim and not risk my health. And my friend Gary was swimming over in Lindemar, because he lives right up the hill from there. So I texted him like, hey, can I start joining you there? And so, been swimming there since then. But especially with winter coming now, I swam this morning, it was 52 degrees. And without the club being open, with the sauna and the hot showers, we're still trying to navigate what we can do in terms of swimming, because like I have about a 15-minute drive to get there. More importantly, to get home afterwards. And so we're trying to figure out like how long can we swim for to still all of us to make it home safely. And so right now it seems to be okay, actually, with the water temp being 52. But Lindemar is it's colder than it is in San Francisco Bay. And so it's like, if San Francisco Bay gets into like the upper 40s, I don't want to think about what Lindemar is going to be. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue swimming there with that. Just because like it's like my bigger fear of the drive home and then getting home, and collapsing my floor, and like no one's gonna know.
Yeah, right.
So
stay safe.
So right now it's like I'm setting up all my clothes to change into in my bathroom. I get in there, turn the heater fan on, close the door, trying to make it like a little bit of a sauna while I'm showering. and just, kind of staying there like the entire time, trying to mimic my routine that I would do at the club if the club was open. But it is something I'm a little sensitive of right now, because at the club, if you passed out in the shower or something, like, there were other members there that could help, and it has happened to people too. Last winter I had twice where, I'd be in the shower and start feeling lightheaded, and we have chairs in there. And I started feeling lightheaded and, would pull one of the chairs over and just sit down on it under the shower, because it's like, oh, thank God. It's like, I don't know what was going on there. Actually, I do, but why is a different matter, because, along with like, with open water and conditions always changing. It's like, sometimes you can go for a swim in the exact same temperature that was last week. But for some reason today is just not your day. Your blood pressure drops. And like all of a sudden, like, I'm gonna pass out.
Our bodies are complicated things. And you got to be sensitive to it. So that's good to be aware, but it doesn't make it hard that you can't consistently go swimming or feel like you can consistently go swimming.
But overall, I've been kind of surprised during this pandemic of my fitness level seems to be pretty much the same though. So obviously I'm doing something right.
That's good. Yeah. It sounds like you've got a lot of other outlets.
Yeah, and like I'm actually really thankful for it too, because that really is the only part of the day that I feel like I'm really alive. Still part of the world is like when I'm actually out there, even though a lot of what I'm doing by myself is like, cycling and trail running. But yeah, it helps because like I've been working from home since March.
Yeah, I hear
you. And you saw one of my coworkers that I get to see every day. Yeah.
What's your cat's name?
His name is George. He's got a sister Gracie who's probably underneath my bed covers right now. So she'll be there for about another 4 hours. But yeah. That's actually they're actually one of the things I'm looking forward to, finally going back to the office again. Just as you see, like, because he does that when I'm trying to work too in conference calls. And sometimes it's like, oh my God, I just cannot wait to get back to the office and not have a fur ball crawling around while I'm trying to work. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Man, it's been an interesting year for sure. What advice would you give to an aspiring marathon swimmer?
Sorry?
What advice would you give to an aspiring marathon swimmer?
My advice would be to figure out what worked for you. Everyone has a different way of doing it. Everyone has different feeds. Everyone's, swears by like, oh, this is what works. Like, well, that's what worked for you. That's not necessarily going to be working for someone else. So yeah, like for me, for like my feeds, I'm primarily on honey stinger gels and scratch hydration mix, which is actually more popular with cyclists. I've never tried Carbo Pro or UCAN. But it's like, yeah, I have
got something that works. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to work. It's like, always trying different things too. Like Lynn Cox always said, have some treats for you, for during the swims, which I thought was, really good advice. But yeah, I just like, I guess that's my advice. It's just, talk to a bunch of people, but, no one's advice is like, should be held to the gold standard because we're all different. Like you said, our bodies are very complicated things. We're all going to react differently. It's sometimes like, feeds that work for one swim might not work for another one.
Right.
That's the main thing I could think of with training. But and then just do whatever calls you. There, like for me, there are certain bodies of water that I feel attracted to, that it's like I want to go go and swim those. And just because, like, yeah, I have some, you know, weird kind of spiritual connection to it. It's like sometimes I just can't even explain why.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, you know, if I want to do that. So, you know, and I have a lot of respect for people who take longer to complete a swim. That is harder for them. Like I know, you know, my friend Naji Ali, who's still aspiring to finish his first marathon swim. You know, he didn't learn to swim until he was in his 40s. You know, and it means so much to him to be able to do this at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like, I'm always going to be there to support him on any of his attempts. I know it's going to take longer, and it's harder for him. You know, it's like, so I was thinking actually yesterday, you know, some of my favorite swims, like marathon swim stories, it's the one that you don't really hear about, of what people struggle through to get to where, to be able to finish it. It's like not necessarily the first time they did it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like I don't find it that interesting to see someone who, you know, like swam Catalina and then, you know, did a cartwheel coming out of the water because it was just like, oh my God, that was easy. It's like, yeah, it's like, well, you know, that's less interesting than, you know, someone who spent a lot more time having to train. It was a lot harder for them. Spent, like Paula Selby and I were talking about this one time, that we both have a lot more respect and admiration for those who struggled to finish these, because none of these are easy. You know,
No.
for some, you know, like for a lot of people, Alcatraz is a really hard swim for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 1.25 miles. And it's like, and I don't think that, you know, any of these should be, you know, looked down on. You know, because for some people, finishing a 10K marathon swim is a lot harder than for other people to, you know, to finish something like 50 miles.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 20 miles. And like, you know, Sarah Thomas she's an absolutely incredible swimmer. I love her story. So she's extremely humble. And yeah, it's like, I also know too, you know, because I read what she went through on her Champlain swim. Like, that was a really difficult swim for her.
Mm-hmm.
Really difficult. It's like, and I like, you know, I like hearing about that.
Yeah.
I was with Steve Walker and Cameron Bellamy when they did their first Subaru Straight attempt in Japan. And it broke my heart when they both pulled themselves, like, you know, 4 kilometers from the finish.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like they couldn't even they were so hypothermic they couldn't get on the boat. They couldn't get up the ladder. We had to pull them up.
Wow.
And I remember we got into the cabin, and Cameron said, like, you know, can I put my head on your lap? And he just like kind of collapsed.
Oh.
Yeah. You know, and then it's like, and then he went back and, you know, finished it. You know, and so it's like, you know, even though you know, with my DNF, it's like, you know, if it happens, you know, it happens. You'll live to swim another day.
Exactly.
You know, it's always going to be there. You know, it might just not have been your day, just like, you know, kind of bad luck, bad conditions. But, you know, kind of don't be afraid to go back and, you know, as they say, like, you know, it'll be sweeter when you do finish it.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. What marathon swimmers inspired you?
Geez. I think a lot of them. I've just always been amazed at how, like, it's one thing I love about the marathon swimming community of how supportive we are of each other. You know, it's a smaller community. We know a lot more other people. But you know, like people like Lynn Cox, the British Stories, you know, she helped me a lot with my Anacapa training, made herself available to talk. And Marilyn Bell, when I met her, and she remembered me from the previous year from my Catalina Swim. I met her a year later, and she was just like, yeah, she's like, I remember you. I really admire you. I'm like, that actually just happened. Marilyn Bell admires me. and knows who I am. And then, yeah, like, like Steve and Cam, my friend Kathy Harrington, who, she kayaks for me a ton. And then she started doing her own marathon swims too. Her scar swim in Arizona, she did not finish Apache on her first attempt. And then the following year, she went back and finished all 4 of them, including Apache.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Amy Gubser, who is an incredible marathon swimmer, incredible person. I observed her Catalina Swim, and she started having respiratory problems during it and still finished.
Oh, wow.
She went to the hospital afterwards. She was actually going to crew for the Catalina Swim the following night. That was her plan. Original plan was to finish her Catalina Swim, be back on land for like 4 hours, get back to the boat, and crew for someone else.
Wow.
It's just the woman has boundless energy.
Yeah.
That's and she helps everyone. I don't think there's a single marathon swimmer at South Bend who she has not helped on their swim. Even just like, giving them advice, talking to them in the locker room, cheering them on. Absolutely supportive. And then, yeah, like Gracie Vanderbilt, really admire her a lot. She's got a big heart. And she's extremely shy too. And on one hand, I can tell she gets a little embarrassed every time people bring up like her Catalina record. And let me think. A lot of people I know. Scott Tapley. It took him, I think, if I remember right, 3 tries to finish the Single Channel. He finally finished it last year. Oh. Tom Linthicum, Reptile, who does not train for any of his marathon swims and somehow manages to pull off things like the length of Tahoe with like no training, which also helps prove that it's, a lot of it's mental.
Yep.
Yeah. I've seen that before with observing swims and seeing like the swimmer just absolutely lose it mentally. They lose the motivation. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's so heartbreaking. Mina Roden, who became the first Black person to swim Anacapa. I think it was like just last year that she did it, which just amazes me that this is still a thing of where we still it's still like a big deal when like, a Black person finishes any marathon swim.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Najee, I'm going to be so extremely proud of Najee when he finishes one. So just knowing how much he's carrying on that.
Yeah. Yeah, that pressure probably makes it even a little bit harder.
Yeah. Ken Magnosa, who's I observed his Catalina Swim too. I've swam with him. He is a very tough marathon swimmer. He's gotten some really bad conditions.
Oh,
and somehow still manages to keep swimming.
Wow.
He remembers on his Catalina Swim that there was one time he looked over at the boat and he could see the entire deck of the boat. We were leaned over that far on.
Wow.
Yeah. Even the boat crew was saying like, I don't like it when conditions are like this.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow. Oh man, it's been really, really wonderful talking to you today, Kelley. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for listening to me babble.
I love it.